I'm Dr. Saloni Pava, and today we're going live with Dr. Shaista Kazi. Just gonna wait for a couple of people to join in. Hi everybody. Hi Samina. Okay, so we're going live today with Dr. Shaista. She's here already. Let me just add her on. Hi guys. Hi everybody. Hi Shaista. Okay.
Hi.
So today we're going to be talking about some really interesting topics. I'm going to let Shaista take over.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
Okay. So hi guys, all of you all who don't know me, I'm Dr. Shaista Farooqi Kazi. I'm a dermatologist, a cosmetologist, trichologist, and I specialize in pediatric dermatology as well. In today's time, this has become a very important thing because there are so many skin conditions we see in kids compared to a little rash, what used to happen, many years ago. So while our pediatricians are so good that they handle everything, even at 2 a.m. calls, I'm a mom of three, so we've troubled you all enough. But there are some things for which a pediatric dermatologist can take a little bit of weight off the pediatrician's shoulders and work in a conjecture, work together with the pediatrician to achieve a more holistic healing for the baby and the child, because the skin is nothing but a mirror of what's going on inside the body. So if we can actually give them relief, not just on the skin, but completely, that's what health is about, complete well-being.
I totally agree. I feel like any pediatric issue, any super specialty is a combined effort between your parent pediatrician and the super specialist on board. So you're completely right. Like while rashes are a very common thing, there definitely is a lot of scope for the multiple new things that we started seeing these days, especially with all these new products coming in and so many new fads and so many new things. I personally believe in sticking to the basics. But as we elaborate a little bit more about atopy and others, I'm sure we'll come across things that we should recommend parents to use and all. So we
Absolutely.
can start with today's topic.
Yeah, let's do that. So both of us will talk a little bit about our part of this, and then we'll open up to questions. So all the people who've joined us, if you all want to know anything from me about your child's skin or anything from Dr. Saloni, we'll be more than happy to guide you after we give you like a brief introduction. So today what we decided to talk about is atopy, because it's become so common. 1 in 8 children today are atopic, especially in an urban setup like ours. There is a thing called immune hypothesis or a cleanliness hypothesis, because of which you see this condition much more in the upper class, upper middle class, in the richer people than maybe we would see in the slums, or in areas where the kids are exposed to so many pathogens and microbes early on. So it's not like the parents have done something wrong or you could have done something differently. It's just that we don't have that kind of environment around us where the child would be exposed to it. So when eventually the child does come into exposure of that, he has a heightened response. So the reaction to it is much more than it normally should be or normally would be. So for this, there's a triad, basically an atopic triad. There is an eczema or a skin component, what we call as the dermatitis. Then there's rhinitis or common frequent colds, which Doc will tell you more about. And then there is bronchial asthma along with allergies. So it's the wheeze that you get, and you could be allergic to multiple foodstuffs. You could be allergic to um, dust, pet dander, pollen grains, lots of things. So it's not necessary that an atopic child has all three things. It could start off with a minor complaint like dry skin. So many times, when our babies are born, we're expecting them to have like perfect skin, like we see in the ads. We want that the bums to be so soft that we can, but it's not like that. The child is born with lots of rash. There's diaper rash, there's neonatal acne, there's malaria, and parents are very upset. But eczema or dry skin is something that is most bothersome, because whatever they do, if they put more oil, it's still, when you have give a bath, it gets more dry than it previously was. And the colds. So even as a mom, when my child gets a cold, we freak out. So for an atopic child, the number of times they keep getting this cold and the quickness with which this proceeds into asthma, which you can throw some light on. So it's not necessary that all three things of the triad are there. It could even start off with just very dry skin. So after doc tells you a little bit about the other two conditions that are seen in the triad, I'll tell you how you can manage this and how you can look at a child and know that is he atopic? Is she atopic? How can you guess that? And what you can do to build the skin barrier so that at least the skin component is out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so from a pediatric standpoint, again, like you said, allergies is something that's extremely common, especially in a city like Bombay. The kind of pollution and the amount of construction that's going on around us and the kind of dust that we live in, it is something that's become very, very extremely prevalent. There is something called an allergic march, in fact. And we believe that children who are born with allergic tendencies or an immune system that is more prone to allergies, which could be genetic even, normally starts with a skin rash very, very early on. So one of the first things you would end up seeing in a child who, would have a projected trajectory towards like an allergic cold or an allergic wheeze would actually be like an atopy, a sensitivity, or a dry skin or a rash. Um, you will rarely see all three at the same time. Only the very severe cases would have the entire triad together. You would usually see some kind of skin symptoms, which would then resolve, and then as the child grows older, would probably start getting allergic colds, and then maybe further down the line getting allergic wheezes and so on and so forth. And usually you would have one of the three things becoming the most prominent symptoms. So either the skin rash will be the most prominent, or the nose will trouble them a lot, or the chest will trouble them a lot. So definitely when we see children with atopic kind of rashes, and you'll probably be able to describe the distribution etc better, we do sound off the parents right from the beginning, saying that it is possible that by the time the child is 10 months, 11 months, they might start throwing up frequent cold coughs, and cold coughs that are not associated with fevers. They might even become wheezers when they grow up. So this is the kind of counseling that goes into picking up something early like an atopic rash. It's not something that's very simple and it just that कि rash हो गया बच्चों में चला जाएगा. It's not like that. It is definitely something that parents need to be aware about, because if you know more about the situation, I think you can be better prepared and you can deal with it better as the kid grows up. But having said that, it has become so common that 8 out of 10 kids that we see in practice today either have rashes or have allergic colds or have dry coughs. Now, in a pediatric age group, we've stopped using the term asthma, because most of these kids, in fact, almost all of them will not grow up to have asthma. So we actually now call it hyperreactive airways. And the pathophysiology is almost the same as that of an asthmatic child. So it's the wheezing and the response to dust and dust mites, etc. But we don't use the term asthma anymore. Another thing that I want to add before I hand it over to you again to describe the rashes is genetically one of the two parents or some grandparent will have a lineage of like dry skin or breaking out often, or having to use products very carefully because it doesn't really suit them, and that kind of throws up very early in kids. So we do find a genetic history as well, besides the environmental factors. So why don't you go ahead and describe the rashes and how we can take care of atopy a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, doc. So also your last point, we've noticed this in our practice that if there is a parent or a grandparent with asthma, or like it's, you don't call it that now, sometimes their child comes with eczema. So sometimes it
Yes.
just alternates between an asthma and an eczema. So it's either out on the skin or it's pushed in and it comes into the lungs. But
Very true.
this is like two sides of the spectrum where we see that even a genetic predisposition is there. If there is an asthma patient, the child may be prone more to skin complaints.
Yes. Yeah. So asthma again is kind of like an heightened immune response, right? It falls into an allergy spectrum of reactions. So what I meant to say was genetically there's a family history. One of the first things that the kids would throw up is
Absolutely.
eczematous atopic kind of rashes, and that kind of gives you a slight look into the future, and you can
An
probably anticipate
indicator.
that okay, this child will develop allergies as they grow older.
True. True. So I would like to say one thing, that even before the rash actually comes up, there are some ways in which you can just look at the child and know that is your child atopic. So supposing your child has got very dry skin, it could be just that. Your child could be just having dry skin, but he could also be atopic. So how do we distinguish? So just below the eyes here, if the child has a deep line, that is one of the indicator that the child could be atopic. The palms, if there is hypolinearity of palms, if these lines are really deep compared to how they should be in a baby, that is one indicator again for an atopic child. The other thing, whenever the child gets a cold, he'll have a habit of rubbing his hand up
Yeah.
like this. We
Yeah.
call that an atopic salute. Yeah. And you get a small ridge here. So sometimes there's nothing else, it's just a ridge here. And the mother says, there's a cold, but all kids get a cold. That's true. All kids do get a cold, but not necessary that all kids will get a rash or go into a wheeze or have this. So just keep your eyes open, and then you can either ask your pediatrician or you can come and consult a pediatric dermatologist, which I feel you should do at least once a year, even if your baby's skin condition is good, because you meet your pediatrician almost every month for a vaccine in the first 2 crucial years, but you don't really see a pediatric dermatologist. And sometimes we can catch it early and we can build your skin barrier, so at least you don't have to go through all the issues of the skin. Then you just need to handle the cold, treat it aggressively, make it go away as and when it comes. Besides
Yeah.
that, another thing is the rash. So there is this area below the elbow and behind the knees, the cubital and popliteal fossa. These are the first areas where you'll start feeling a little dirty rash. So you'll feel like, it's very dirty, or even if I keep cleaning my child, it looks like it's not clean. The eczema, the rash, these are the predisposed areas. So these are few indicators with which we can be more sure that maybe the child is atopic. If the child is atopic also, there's nothing to worry. These are just medical terms. It's not like he's got psoriasis or something where you need to freak out. We just need to be a little more careful as to avoid him putting him in situations where he gets a cold, or if he's playing in the dust or something like that. We need to see that if he gets hurt, there might be a mark, and the mark might take a little longer to go than it would in another child, especially as they are growing up. We've seen that by 7 or 9, sometimes atopy starts going off by itself. It starts reducing,
Yeah.
and sometimes it altogether goes off. Some unfortunate cases, it does prolong into adulthood.
Yeah. So
Would you feel
another
the
common
same
thing,
about the weeds?
yeah, so another common thing that we end up seeing actually is like really young kids coming with like dryness on the cheeks, and the neck folds seems to be the commonest area. So, any place where there's like a lot of skin folds in the child, they tend to have sweat accumulating or dampness accumulating, which then triggers it. And I actually don't jump to the term atopy very easily in my practice, because I
Exactly.
think it scares patients when you say, oh, this is an eczema or this is an atopy.
We
So
feel
what I
branded,
prefer,
yeah.
yeah, so what I prefer telling them is that, your child has sensitive skin, and actually, one of the most important things to do is to moisturize and hydrate the skin, because that's what builds up the barrier, right? So the most basic thing before the skin starts even breaking out into a rash is that it will dry out first. So if you
Yeah,
keep a good moisturizing routine, you'll cut down more than half the rashes, and you don't have to jump to then steroid creams, etc. Um,
exactly.
and like you said, like with allergies, the one good thing about childhood allergies is that almost all of them, like only 1 out of 100 kids would go on to have persistent symptoms as they grow older, but 99 of them will have a symptom free period after they're about 4, 5, 6, and then be absolutely okay till they're young adults. Now, as young adults, they might end up throwing up some kind of genetic tendency that the parents or the grandparents have. Okay. So that will be an adult related thing. But childhood allergies, more often than not, they'll completely outgrow and become symptom free. So whether it's skin, it's wheeze, it's nose, all of it gets resolved.
Yes, like for me, one example would be me myself. I was allergic to all pulses, all grams, all dals till I was 15. And then it's all gone. So I can eat everything now. And it was a
Yeah.
severe allergy. I would get asthma. I never had any skin related issues by the grace of God, but
Yeah.
I would get asthma and it completely went. So I always tell my parents also, we need to tell them that the child is atopic. If they come to me as a dermat, I
Yes.
can't dodge that. But there's nothing to worry. All we need to do is, like Doc said, we need to moisturize. So now it's very important to know how to moisturize. If there is
Yeah.
a child who does not have atopy or is just a child, even just one lotion a day would be fine. But in an atopic kid, we layer the skin. So we build a barrier. So
Yeah.
even when we are giving a bath, we don't use hot water at all. So it doesn't dry out the skin. But we don't use cold water too. We don't want a cold. So just lukewarm and very quick. And just once a day, we don't allow them to bathe the child again. Means not 2 times a day, because we don't want to dry out the skin. It's just one quick bath with a very mild soap. Something oil based would be preferable. And then we don't scrub the body dry, we just dab it dry. And we again put an oil based moisturizer at that time when the skin is semi wet, when it's damp. So it locks in the moisture further. And then we go in for a rich moisturizing lotion. And we do the moisturizing lotion one more time at night. Some people
Yeah.
prefer cold pressed coconut oil. I'm okay with that, but try a little, because some even atopic kids react to the oil compared to
Yeah,
the
I
natural.
would. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, in fact,
So
what I tell most of my patients is that anytime you're trying something for a child with atopy or sensitivities, just do a patch test. And if the kid
absolutely.
tolerates it well, firstly, I don't think children who have sensitive skin, the parents should be experimenting too much with a lot of products.
And there's no need to change. If something
Yeah,
is
there's no need to
suiting you, just
change.
go.
Once you find
Yeah.
something that you like, stick to it, maintain a good routine, maintain a consistent moisturizing routine, and your skincare products and your bath care products for sensitive skin, etc. Whether you're using Sebamed or Vaseline or Cetaphil or whatever is suiting your
The
child.
Cetaphil works well for atopic kids because they've
Yeah,
got Restoraderm and all, which are really thick. So,
right.
compared to just the normal lotions, anything, there are lots of brands now. Moms and Co is good, Atogla. These are much richer. So, in eczematic skin or skin prone to eczema, they give a much better result than the normal lotions. But I would again say that, if they consult a dermatologist, if they find out that the child is atopic, we can guide them as per their child's skin.
Yeah, perfect.
Individual.
So
Yeah.
yeah, another very important thing to note here, I guess, is that the plan has to be customized for each child.
Yes,
It's not
exactly.
necessary that what works for one kid will
It
work
may
for the
not.
next.
It may not. Because
Yeah,
as you said, some kids by 6, they completely grow out of it.
right.
Where for some kids, it keeps getting worse. So at this age, most of the lotions and oils stop working.
Yeah.
And then we come to the thing that we need a steroid. And unfortunately, that word has got used and abused so much that the minute you say it, the parents don't change the cream, they change the doctor.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's unfortunate because at some point of time, that's the only thing that's going to work.
Yeah, I think for very severe cases, you don't have a choice because sometimes the skin can get really abraded, and at that point, you definitely do need a steroid treatment. But again, it should be a collaborative effort
Yeah, and
between your
absolutely. And
dermatologist, parent, and the
there are so many steroids, doc. As you know, the potencies are different, the dosage
right.
is different. So if they actually consult a doctor and follow up, so it's
Yeah,
not like we write a steroid and they just go off, and then as and when they feel like they take out a little and put it. That's
yeah,
abuse of the steroid, because your child will get tolerant, and next time this won't work. We'll have to give something more stronger. So
very true.
instead of that, if you follow up properly and we use a mild steroid, it will give the baby relief. And
Yeah,
it's
very
fine.
true.
We use a steroid even for newborns. So it's not like it's going to cause any long lasting side effects or any issues like that.
Yeah, so two important things to note about steroids is one is that only once it's recommended by the dermatologist or the pediatrician, and second is very important to maintain follow up and follow the treatment completely and not just use it SOS
Absolutely.
or
Yes.
just as a because it's not just like a Cetaphil lotion. I mean, it's something that you
No.
have to use like a
No.
medicine. So
That's
that's
right.
important for parents who are opting for that treatment or have kids who have severe eczema and need it to know. Very true, because we have a lot of patients who are lost to follow up the moment you say steroid. And
Yeah.
then they
That
use it for
either
2 days.
they're just using it on their own, or then they've
Yeah.
decided that the child is
Yeah.
cured.
So just
And
to
then
be
we call
vigilant and
after a week
informed.
with a worse flare.
True, very true. Okay, what's your take on, a lot of patients come and usually ask for like all these, using like besan and atta and all for massage and all of that. I usually don't recommend it at all because I've had a lot of kids break out and
Same.
have all sorts of reactions whatsoever.
So, you know what happens? This is especially a little bit of an issue with those kids who are living with grandparents, because
Yeah.
grandparents have done it all for us. So they feel like, we brought up our kids. Are you trying to say we were doing it all wrong? So I
Yeah.
always tell them it's not like y'all did it wrong. It's just that the times have changed. The babies have changed in all
Yeah.
possible ways, they've changed, but their skin has really changed. And the whole environment and everything. So I would still not allow any kind of besan or bajra or anything like that,
Same.
because masoor dal, because kids
Mm.
can react. I mean, the skin can go into such a flare, and then it can leave marks, which will take a long time to go. But if the parents are insistent, I allow a little bit of almond powder,
Right.
turmeric, and malai just on the face. This is also if in case they just they need to do something, they can't not do it.
Right. And
Otherwise,
what's your
just a normal bath and lotion is good enough.
Agreed. So I have absolutely the same take on using, I think there was even a question that I read on home packs and all. I mean, you need to completely avoid it if possible. And if at all you're using something, speak to your doctor before using it. That's the best way to go about it. Do a patch test and see if your child is even tolerating it. Another question that we get very often is the link between dairy, milk and milk products and rashes. So what's your take on that?
So I feel like unless you've had an episode, like you've just had milk, your child has just had milk and broken out, then maybe you could blame it on that. But I would not make a blanket rule against milk because, of course, this is a very debatable topic because lots of
Yeah.
people nowadays are opting out and choosing almond milk and all. But we, as a family, we love milk. So, of course, not going deeper into the dairy industry and all, I don't feel that milk is bad as a rule. If your child it doesn't suit, then you can opt not do it. It's not the
Yeah.
same thing like like dals, for example,
Mhm.
putting besan on the skin. It's going to be like 2 out of 10 kids are going to tolerate it. For milk, I would be like 8 out of 10 kids are going to be fine drinking it.
Yeah,
Maybe two
most
of them might
definitely.
be lactose intolerant or something. You just need to take that individual call. I wouldn't ban it completely.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. So I think the important point to note here is that it is a common misconception that milk and milk products cause eczema. A
Hmm.
child could be born with a tendency to have allergies on eczematic skin. Some
Absolutely.
kids may have flare-ups because of dairy, but that's not a blanket rule for children across the board. So it again, you need to see if your child is reacting to it or not, and only eliminate it from the diet if at all your child is having a visible reaction of flare-ups after consuming milk and milk products. um
Because flares happen with so many things,
yeah,
tomatoes, chikus, simple things like that can cause flares. Garlic in
agreed.
the
Yeah.
food. Some kids could be allergic to eggs. So then it's generally I tell my patients to go in for an elimination tactic. So just try everything because
Yeah, like a
the
trial and
allergy
error.
test. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the allergy test, doc? Sometimes I
Yeah,
think
so
they're
I
over
actually don't
present.
recommend. I actually don't
Yeah.
recommend the allergy test at all for two reasons. One is that an allergy test actually will only give you an accurate testing, if at all, once the child has crossed about 2 to 3 years of age. So
Right.
up until they're 2, 3, they still have a developing immune system. So, if I get an allergy test done for a 1-year-old, they might throw up a range of allergies to multiple things that they're clinically not allergic to, meaning that in practice,
Exactly.
say you give the product, suppose for like tomatoes, for example, like you give it to the child and the child is absolutely okay, but it might show up as an allergy in
And
the
generally it
test.
does. Yeah. There are a
And
lot
then
of
it just
allergies
sends you,
that show up.
yeah, and then it just sends you into a spiral of like, oh, my child is allergic to this, my child is allergic to that. And it's not practically possible to stop a 2-year-old, 3-year-old from eating multiple things. So what I tell my patients is that until and unless you see a visible reaction to consumption of a certain food product, consider that as an allergy. And even that is not to be termed as a lifelong allergy. It's something that your child will most likely outgrow 9 out of 10 times. So maybe a year down the line, you reintroduce it and see if the child is tolerating it. So until and unless you have a child who's thrown up a life-threatening reaction to something or a very severe reaction to something that they've consumed, that is the only thing that you will eliminate and be extremely careful or thoughtful about even reintroducing. Everything else most likely is mild and is something they're going to outgrow. So I totally agree with you. I don't think allergy tests is the answer. Your treatment is not based on allergy tests. Your prognosis is not based on allergy tests. It's quite a wasteful
And
thing
we
to do for
cannot
a young
expect
child.
the child to not eat so much from such a young age. The amount
Yeah,
of things that come positive. Doc, do you
very true.
recommend starting off all sorts of food before the 8th month to get the child, in a way immune to all allergens? It's the latest fad. They are starting everything between 6 and 8 months. They're giving the child everything.
So actually, I think weaning is a stepwise process. When we get into like having children to try everything, it's anyways quite a task to get them to learn to eat
That's
things
true.
one at a time. And I think more of a priority between 6 to 8 months becomes your dals and your khichdi and your vegetables, and it becomes more about right eating habits than to introduce allergens. It's not really required for you to introduce each and everything at a very young age.
But if you
Um,
do, but if you do, sorry to interrupt, if you do, does it mean that there's a chance that he won't get the allergy that he would have got if you had introduced it after a year?
So the theory behind it is hyposensitization. So I mean, you would know this as well. Like most allergens, the best way to help the body overcome an allergy is to introduce the body to the allergen in really small quantities frequently. and allow it to develop memory and a immune response to that allergen so as to stop reacting to it. So the concept is basically that. Having said that, no, we don't recommend to do it early because it is very possible that children would throw up reactions to things that they would technically won't when they are older, or they would outgrow a lot of foods that they are at that point throwing up reactions to, but by the time they're a year and a half, 2 years, they tolerate it well. So
True.
unless a child has very, very severe allergies or a very limited diet, this is not a practice that is adopted routinely.
Yeah, so it's so important. Like I tell my patients also to ask your pediatrician this and not just on WhatsApp or Google or
Yeah.
Instagram and just see what another maybe mom blogger's doing. So we also doing because her child is different from yours.
Yeah,
And
I do
just
agree
because
with that.
that child has not reacted does not mean that yours won't. In fact, even if your first child has not reacted, it doesn't mean your second child won't. We
Very
are
true. That's
completely different.
very true. Yeah, every child is completely different. Even siblings are completely different. So it has to be
We've
totally
seen even in
customized.
skin conditions. Yes, absolutely. It's not necessary what works for one works for the other. It could be grossly wrong. So we wouldn't
Right.
take a risk like that with the child.
100%. Okay, so I'm going to let you take the question, Shaisa.
Yeah, so that's what
There
I
seems
thought.
to be a bunch of them. Okay.
So Tanya is asking that would you recommend a air purifier or humidifier in Bombay?
Okay, so air purifier, humidifier is a fairly controversial topic. I mean, a lot of patients who have kids with severe allergies come and ask if that's a good option. It's always nicer to breathe in purer air. But I honestly, in practicality, have not had a single patient come back to me say that they saw a significant difference in the child after introducing a purifier or a humidifier in the room. So if you want to use it to just make sure that the air that your child is breathing is cleaner, go ahead with that, but please don't expect miraculous results because that rarely happens.
True. So also somebody's asked me that what is the reason for the child getting molluscum? So molluscum contagiosum, as the name goes, is highly contagious. So generally the child picks it up from play school, playing with other kids. It's basically a viral infection. And the best way to treat it is to come to us and we'll take it out. Nowadays, lots of people are going in for homeopathy and I'm not against homeopathy for all, anything else that it may work. But in a condition like a skin condition, it's better to not wait on it and to treat it at that time rather than the child, because molluscums keep growing. So if it's on the face and your child touches it and then he touches maybe his genitals, it's going to spread there and then that's going to cause him a lot of discomfort. You can also get it from your child. So the
That's
best
true.
thing is before they spread, like when they're 2 or 3, it's easy for us to take it out. When then you come to us with 20, it's okay for us, but it's not a fun experience for the child. So
Yeah.
just remove them, take them out. My daughter is 4 years old and she has hair on her face and body. I don't know, doc, what you tell your patients, but I'm like, please let it be. The hair
I
won't
tell them to
grow.
just let it be, and by the time the kid
Yes.
grows up, more often than not, it's not of
Yeah,
concern.
so these malish walis, they put a little bit of besan and masoor dal on each hair. They make a knot and then they flick it. So
Yeah, that's very
it's really
painful.
painful. And what is the need? I mean,
Yeah,
see,
it's
most
not.
of the cells share. Yeah, the cell turnover rate is so high that all the hair or even the top layers, the skin are all going to shed.
Yeah.
And in case they don't, when your daughter's 13, please bring her to us. We'll do a painless laser hair removal.
That's
It's much
perfect. Yeah.
safer than this. Yeah.
I think this should be a concern for teenagers and kids who are, young adults,
Yeah,
not
who are
a
being
4-year-old.
tortured.
Right. Okay, I think the next question is what should be the regime for skin and hair care and to maintain the natural baby skin for a 15-month-old girl? Shaisa, I'm going to let you take that.
Right. So, see, by the time your baby is 15 months, all children are different. Some don't enjoy the malish anymore, while some still allow it. Also, I would say for the malish, if you can and if you have the time, instead of a malish wali, please do it yourself, because your child does not need vigorous training and exercise and muscle movements. Nobody in the West does it. They're all better athletes than us. They're doing better in most of the things. So
Yeah.
we can do it. It's a mom-child bonding session. You can use a little oil if your daughter allows it at this age also. Maybe cold pressed coconut oil, mustela, something safe, very little. We don't want to use too much because we don't want to go into using much more soap to remove that oil. Then we can even use plain malai if you have it at home. Just put it just a little short massage. Use a good soap. a tear-free mild 2-in-1 for the body and the hair. At 15 months, if she doesn't have too much of hair, you can even use the same wash. If the hair is longer, or you want to look after it because it's curly or something, there are companies with great shampoos and conditioners for kids which you can start after 1 year of age. They are hypoallergenic, no sulfates, no parabens, so absolutely safe. And immediately after the bath, you apply a lotion. So even if she's not allowing the massage before, the lotion afterwards is good because it will help to trap the moisture. No need to massage, you can just apply it, it will dry out and you can put on the clothes. If possible, if she's playing outside in the garden or whatever, you can do one more sponge at night.
So till what age do you normally recommend a massage?
Till a year.
Yeah, same. That's what even I say.
Yeah.
I think most kids after 1 year don't really enjoy it as much.
Yeah, so if the child likes it, if it's like a bonding
Yeah.
session between the mother and the child wants to do it, go ahead. But it's not like you need to. Some kids don't like it and the parents are just pushing. Especially if the menstrual is coming, they're howling and they're like the lungs are developing. The lungs don't need to develop.
Yeah.
Doc will tell you there's no need.
Vigorous massages are not required. I mean, I totally agree with you. No child. They need a soft massage and maybe just a little bit of exercise, and that's about it.
Yeah, and that's just that exercise can even be done while giving tummy time.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree.
Yeah, there's no need for the child to be naked and crying and
100%.
howling and five people looking over him. It's not
Yeah.
good.
Agreed. Okay, somebody has asked what is the best time to start solids. I will be happy to address this question separately, considering the topic for today is cold coughs, allergies, and skin. We'll stick to questions regarding that.
I'll be sharing. We'll be sharing Dr. Saroni's numbers also with you all later. If you all want to even ask any personal questions or consult.
Yeah, please go ahead and text me directly. Okay. So, which moisturizer would you recommend for an 18-month-old for regular skin?
So as we said, we wouldn't want to push any brand here, but most of these brands are safe. Sebamed, Cetaphil, Mustela is very good. I've used it for my own kids. Moms & Co. has started a little after my boys. It's got amazing organic products. So you can go in for any of these. Don't try something too homemade or too unheard of, because we don't really know what's going into it. All these companies are stating their what they're using, and some of them are FDA approved and all, so it's better to go in for something safe.
Yeah, so I would actually again suggest do something for sensitive skin or normal skin depending on your child's skin texture. Do a patch test first and then stick to what's working for your kid. It might not be the same as what's working for the next.
Totally.
But yeah.
Like a face cream, some kids react beautifully to a face cream, whereas some kids immediately they get a rash. Yeah, even if you use the best company face creams, it doesn't suit them. So avoid putting lotion directly on the face, because sometimes there might be a lot of redness and discomfort and the child may not be able to tell you. So
yeah, sometimes true, agree. Sometimes the most basic thing that works for a kid is Vaseline petroleum jelly. I mean, I have so many patients coming to me who've tried all sorts of products, and I'm like, just stick to that small 5 rupees.
So in fact, yes, especially for a diaper rash, we always tell them that after, even like normally after each Susu diaper, just use Vaseline. There's no need to go for Pseudo or Desitin or nothing, because in fact, don't need fancy even pigmentation sometimes in the long run.
True, yes,
just Vaseline is good. If you have a rash, of course, then you need to use rash free or Pseudo something, but not needed otherwise. Just Vaseline is very good.
Correct. Okay. Somebody has asked, what about these homemade packs that people use for babies? I think we've already addressed this. Why do moms use diaper rash creams as nappy changing creams that every change seems to be the new trend?
So it's like there's so much marketing going on of all products that we want to try everything on our child. We can't use a diaper cream after every potty diaper, especially in girls, because doc, you must be seeing, doc, girls are more prone to get a diaper rash and then
very true.
Into UTI. Yeah. So especially for the girls, after every potty diaper, you can use it. But every time after a Susu diaper, you can just use Vaseline or even coconut oil.
Perfect. I agree. So I think one of the most basic things that people miss is when you're taking care of the diaper area is that, they often use a wiping motion to clean the area, but actually you should be using a dabbing motion to clean the area because the skin is very sensitive. So more often than not, the reason for the diaper rash is rarely the wetness or the fact that there is a diaper or a nappy on. It's more often the friction from the rigorous cleaning. So if you're careful about that, and again, like we said right in the beginning, it's about keeping the skin barrier intact to keep the space hydrated and moisturized. So then even a basic regular lotion would do. You don't have to use a diaper rash cream after every single diaper change unless your child is suffering from a diaper rash already.
Yeah, and don't use a lotion there because it will burn. So it has to
Yeah.
be a jelly. Yeah, any petroleum jelly, any oil will be fine. Also, when the child is very small, like below 1, if you can, either you use cotton with water or use water wipes. Avoid the wet wipes with, aloe vera
Agreed.
and some scents. Because
Yes.
especially with girls, we've seen a lot of
A
rash
lot. Yeah.
developing through the wet wipes also that we are
Yes,
using.
definitely. Yeah. And
Because
there are a lot
nowadays,
of there are a lot of companies that are claiming that they are chemical free, but they're actually not. So you need to
no,
use
and
water based wipes.
it's not even about the chemicals. We have patients, adult patients, who react to aloe vera as well. Though
Correct.
aloe vera is supposed to be such a natural thing, it's not necessary that everything natural is always good. Weed is
Correct.
natural. So
Yeah.
it's we need to be careful where we are putting, whom we are using it on. So even
Correct.
aloe vera may not suit everyone. So the plain water wipes, so even just if you can and you have time, take cotton balls and little warm water and clean. It's the best. At least till they
It's
are
the
a year old. Then maybe
Agree.
you can shift to the normal. And it's
True.
very important to dry up the area before putting the diaper. Some
Yeah.
parents don't do that because we are, all of us are sometimes in a rush. So you just clean it with the wet wipe and you quickly put the diaper. That also causes a rash.
Correct. Okay. How would scratch nail marks go from a child's face?
So it again depends on the child's age. If the child is really small, like I said, the cell turnover rate, cell shedding rate is so high that the marks are going to go. It's not going to last. It might take even up to a year, but the marks will completely go. In case
Yes.
the marks don't go because the child is maybe 7th class or atopic, then we can use a lot of creams and all, but we would wait on it till maybe the child is 10, 12 and then start. Because right now the child also doesn't care much about the mark. We can
Yeah,
do
I
some,
agree.
yeah, I
I
mean,
think especially when it comes to girl child, I think parents are very sensitive about,
yeah.
the skin. And often when they have sensitive skin or atopy, it does leave a mark in its healing process. So it can get hyper or hypopigmented and it takes time to go. But the
It
good
takes
part about it is
time.
that it will go.
You need to be patient. Even as you said, you're completely right. Especially if they have a girl, even if she's small, the parents start hyperventilating, and even the grandparents. Everybody gets like the ladki ke chehre pe mark,
Yeah,
which is, I'll tell you now, it doesn't matter because your girl is going to have so many beautiful things going on. That little mark, but still, it will go. So you just need to hang in. It's not going to go overnight. It's going to take time. Even if we treat it, and we can even treat it a little later. So because she has to have the compliance, like if we give a cream, she put it, she just rub it off, it's not going to last. So in case
yeah.
it stays back in an atopic child who maybe 7 or 9, it will also go. There are lasers nowadays for marks. There's so
Yeah.
much that can be done later.
It's fairly rare that a child with atopy or eczema would have persistent marks even till they're teenagers. Most of
No,
it,
so
even
it
though it
depends.
will go away.
No, so if it is a baby with atopy, it will 100% go away.
Right.
But for those few cases, who whose atopy goes on till 7 or 9
Yeah.
or even
Yeah.
till puberty, if they
Yeah.
get it at a later age, then it's just because the cell turnover rate by then has reduced.
Right.
So it's like any of us, if we get a mark like a chicken pox mark, sometimes it stays back.
Right, right, correct. So, but
Yeah.
something to address definitely at an older age group, not something of concern for
Not
younger
young.
kids.
It'll go. It'll go. Don't stress at all. It'll go.
Okay, a bunch of questions on hair care. How often is it advisable to wash my son's hair? It's fairly long. He is 2 years old.
So if it is
Go
long
ahead.
and short, you go.
Go ahead, Shaista, take it.
Okay. So see, that's what I mentioned this in one of my previous talks also. It all depends on how much hair it is. If it is a very short crop of hair, especially in a boy, you can just wash it every time you bathe him. But as they said, if it's long hair, then maybe twice a week is good because we don't want to dry it out too much.
Right, I agree with you. So also, with the heat, a lot of parents come and ask, my child sweats a lot. Is it okay to wash their hair every day? If you're using a mild shampoo that's suiting your child and you're washing alternate days, that is also okay. Again, it's a plan that needs to be customized per child. So it is not a blanket rule that what will work for one kid might work for the next, because some child might have drier hair, some might be able to tolerate it. So you have to go by your kid and see what's working, what's not working, and then decide accordingly.
There are some issues also. Some children don't allow you to remove the shampoo completely when you're giving
Yeah.
them a bath. So if you do shampoo every alternate day and you're leaving some shampoo behind, you're going to get dandruff.
Right.
You know, because like they don't allow you to wash it properly. So in that case, shampooing it lesser and letting it be a little dirtier for 2 days will be a better
Would be
idea
better.
than leaving
Yeah.
shampoo in the hair, because that will definitely cause dandruff.
So I guess multiple factors that would affect how often you would be
Yes,
able to use it,
absolutely.
depending on how cooperative your child is, how much they're tolerating it, what product you're using, etc. Okay,
Yeah, and
my
use
baby's
less
hair.
product.
All right. So my baby's hair is falling a lot and has become very dry. He's 9 months old. Please advise. So I think you should take this question.
So the baby's
For
nine
dry hair,
months. At
9 months and dry hair.
dry. So see, you can oil the hair at this age, but don't put too much oil, because again, as I said, you will not like it to be oily and you'll use more shampoo or baby wash to remove the product. Sometimes at this age, kids do lose hair. It could be some kind of, maybe some vitamin deficiency also that has come into the child. So maybe doc can tell you whether, you know, they recommend any vitamin B12, or maybe the D3 is low. Is it a breastfed child? Is it a formula fed child? How is the calcium? How is all that? The hemoglobin count, is the iron been supplemented in time for the child? If the mother was feeding exclusively till 6 months, was she on her supplements? All these things need to be looked into. Besides that, the oil that you're using, there are some nice homemade oils you can check on my page. One of my friend does it, which are very safe. You know, they make them at home. Castor oil is a good component. You can dab a little into the scalp if you feel there is a lot of hair loss, but don't put too much. And even if the hair is falling now and scanty, it will fill up. The head does fill up. I have 3 kids. My twin boys, one of them had a full head of hair and the other one didn't. We removed it once for religious reasons. Even when it came back, it was the same. And people kept telling me, keep taking it out. I didn't do it, but now, touch wood, both their heads are full with hair. It takes time. These are all natural things. You need to just wait it out.
Yeah. So I think I just want to add here that one, it is normal for children to be shedding hair up to 1 year of age, and then it does fill in. That's number one. But this is keeping all other factors and parameters to be normal. I think for a 9-month-old whose hair is falling a lot, and also she's added here that it is becoming very dry. So drying out and falling off as well could be related to a nutritional issue. So I think the concern here would be to look into the child's diet and grooming plan, and you would most often find something amiss over there, or whether it's a supplementation issue. Look into that, because your hair is also a reflection of your nutritional status. So maybe it's about getting onto a multivitamin, or like you said, a D3 or an iron, but more often than not, it becomes about what the child is eating. So I think, again, something to address on a personal note. So if you can contact one of us directly, we can probably see that in detail. Okay, for scanty hair, what do you recommend? My daughter has scanty hair. The hair will grow in. But do you recommend any
Also,
oil?
there are a lot of things which go into this. You know, we need to see, first of all, her age. Second of all, genetics also plays a part in, you know, how a
Yes.
child. So it's not necessary that all our kids are not fat, all are not fair, all are not filled with hair. Everybody is different everywhere. I have to see the parents also, how they are looking, what hair they had at that age. So
Yeah.
all of us should not have the same expectations. And we should also have the realization that the hair is going to come.
Yes.
So I waited for 3 years and my son's head got filled with hair without any stress, even though my other son had curls trickling down his neck, because every child is different, even with
Agreed.
the same gene pool. So just wait. Castor oil is good. It'll make you feel better more than the child. So you put it and the child's hair will come.
Okay. How often should we oil her hair, and is it advisable to keep it overnight or just an hour prior to wash?
The oil? Is it the oil? Yeah.
Yeah.
So just an hour. I don't recommend putting oil for a long time. It clogs the pores.
Yes.
Yeah. So an hour is also you can just put it also, just massage it and then wash it in 15-20 minutes.
Right. Okay. I'm going to take the last question. I've been applying a mix of castor almond coconut mix. Is it good? So I say a combination of castor almond and coconut.
On their child's head. Now, so see, the thing is, again, we don't know your child's age. We don't know what condition, how he's reacting to it. But it's a good combination generally.
Yeah. So again, it wouldn't be a blanket for kids across the board. So if it's working for one child, it doesn't mean that it will work for the next as well. So if this is something you do want to, these are natural products, natural like almond, coconut, and castor.
They're all
so
good products
that you do want to try out, I would advise do a patch test or speak to your doctor who knows your child's history, and only then maybe try it out if required.
Very less. Don't try to dab too much, because when you try to take it out, you're going to dehydrate the hair further rather than hydrating and conditioning, which is the whole purpose of putting the oil.
Yeah, and I think 30 minutes to an hour of oiling is more than enough usually, and then
More
you
than
just
enough.
wash it off. You don't really
It's
need to
basically
keep it
a
overnight.
conditioner. It's not going to do anything else.
Right.
All the methods that the ads claim are not happening. It's just a conditioner. So this much is enough.
Right. Okay. All right. This was awesome. So your closing thoughts before we end the session.
Yes, so I hope we've tried to answer as much as we could in the time that we had. If you'd like, please leave some messages. We'll do more sessions hopefully together.
Sure,
And,
definitely.
yeah, and help you all out however we can. Basically, we just both of us are trying to say that, you know, consult your pediatrician, go to a pediatric dermatologist. Don't just take any kind of advice or sentence as a blanket rule for all, because every child is different. If your child is atopic also, there's nothing to worry. As she said, they don't even brand a child as an asthmatic anymore. It's just a wheeze which will also go off in some time. So you're doing very well as a parent, and your child is also doing well. And we are here for you if you need anything else.
Yeah, so I completely agree. This was awesome. If we've missed out on any questions, please do write into us and we will try and answer everything. This was great, Shaisa. Let's do this again
It's
soon.
awesome. Yeah,
I hope
absolutely.
this helped, and take care and stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, please stay
Bye.
safe. Bye bye.
Bye.